All right, time to look at the retail markets in Nigeria. Now we see supermarket sales in Nigeria that rose to the highest in at least 6 years. In 2023, latest report by Euromonitor International shows that formal supermarkets overall sales increased by 24% to 370 billion naira last year from 298.1 billion in 2022. That's in the midst of high inflation and high cost of living at this time. Well, joining us now for this conversation is Professor Uchenna Uzo, Professor of Marketing, Academic Director of the Africa Retail Academy, Lagos Business School. Great to have you on the show. Good morning. Hello, Professor. Hello. Good morning, Professor. Can you hear me? Okay, so Professor, if you can hear me, definitely it's all about inflation at this time. We've seen the inflation numbers for April. We've also seen Q1 GDP data. But I'd like to, Professor, I want to get your reaction to the Q1 GDP data that we got. It was higher than the first quarter of 2023, but lower when you look at it month on month. How are you seeing it?
Well, it's first of all, good morning. It's wonderful to be here. Happy to be back here. I see the situation as interesting from the point of view of how the consumer is evolving in this time. So one of the striking things is how more than 90% of the Nigerian consumer spend now goes to food alone, which means that the remaining 10% has to be shared across different products and services they want to have access to. And so this has made consumers to be more careful in budgeting, very, very careful, choosing carefully what they wish to buy. And they are now hunting for the right bargains everywhere. School fees are being bargained for, hotel rates are being bargained for, even taxi rides are being bargained for. And there's a high sense of price sensitivity in the market. The other interesting trend coming from the current situation of inflation is the rise in the second-hand market. So we're seeing that, and by second-hand, I'm not just referring to goods brought in from outside Nigeria that have already been used and sold back here in the country, but I'm also referring to already used Nigerian products that are being sold again to other people to use. We're seeing a rise in that. And then people are choosing to buy in smaller units. The luxury products, the entertainment-based products are now products that are used once in a while. And I think those who consume premium brands increasingly are preferring to consume them socially when they are in events, while when they're at home privately, they are recovering from that huge expenditure by buying smaller or lower brands to recover from the cost. So we are seeing a higher state of brand disloyalty. People are switching to different alternatives because that is what their pockets can afford at this time. So those are the trends that we see.
And talking about this time, definitely dealing with a high cost of living, also dealing with high inflation, highest number in a couple of years at this time. But how would you describe the state, of the Nigerian consumer at this time? We know in other climes, they try to give us data on the strength, of the consumer. So I'd like to get your, how is it looking for you, the Nigerian consumer?
For me, the Nigerian consumer, if I were to use one word to describe the state of the Nigerian consumer at this time, I would say the Nigerian consumer is a hustler. A hustler, I think, is a very good description. Picture a situation of a lady whose name is Kemi, 31 years old, who is a party planner. She's also a lawyer. She's a pastor in church, and she's also a tech guru. The same person has multiple professions, multiple lives, all because she needs to try to earn a good living. And as you go down the social cadre, We are finding people living multiple professional lives, multiple work lives in order to get going, in order to survive in this economy. And it's an interesting trend because those of us in business tend to look at the consumer from one lens only, when there are many other things happening in the life of the consumer. Beyond being a hustler, we are seeing a lot more aspiration in the way people buy and in the way people choose to engage. Nigerian consumers are very aspirational, and even this tough economic time is not taking that aspiration away. The interesting thing that we see is that those at the lower cadre, those that you may call at the bottom of the pyramid, are even more aspirational than those at the higher level in terms of their hope that their incomes will rise, even though the economy is tough and inflation continues to rise. The other bit that is of interest is that we see an increased sense of doing it yourself. So Nigeria is a do-it-for-me market. Nigerian consumers want to be served. They want those who sell to them to give them unique service. And they'll prefer that you do it for them than that they do it themselves. It's interesting that in the banking sector, close to 60 to 70% of those who use banking mobile apps prefer to go to the bank and have the banking agent install those apps on their phones for them than download those apps themselves, which just tells you what the service aspiration is in Nigeria. But I think the most interesting angle of the state of the Nigerian consumer is the level of price sensitivity. Everybody wants a discount, everybody wants a rebate. Even the premium customers right now are looking for better deals. And these are some of the things that I see to be the state of the consumer at this time.
Yeah, quite interesting, the state of the consumer, because every time I go to the supermarket, I get surprised. The items are so few, but I'm paying, so much at the till. But we're seeing data from the NBS that's showing that retail trade was the second highest performer and contributor to Nigeria's GDP in the first quarter. That's after agriculture. Why is retail performance stronger than other major sectors, such as telecom and oil and gas?
So retail trade is huge, and we tend to underestimate it. For instance, in Nigeria at the moment, there are estimated to be over 600,000 retailers, and they employ over 1 million Nigerians. 70% of them are women. And the other interesting trend is that 40% of online and mobile transactions in Nigeria are from the retail sector, which just tells you how retail is the backbone of the economy, the backbone of agriculture, telecoms, financial services, you name it. Retail is omnipresent, retail is everywhere. And it just shows you how perhaps this is the time for the government to also look at policies that will make the environment of retail more friendly, because there's a huge opportunity for growth embedded in this sector. Retail is not just buying and selling, as certain people tend to see it as. It is a science. It is a way of being close to the consumer. And the reason why retail is doing so well is because retail is the closest channel, the closest sector to the consumer. If you want to get to the consumer, you need to go through retail. And that is why I think that's a sector that we need to pay closer attention to.
All right, so there's also a surprising phenomenon there within the retail sector. We're seeing neighborhood supermarkets, outperforming shopping malls, and that was in 2023. And they said the trend is projected, to continue this time. What's your take on that?
Yes, it's real. So supermarkets are outperforming shopping malls in Nigeria. And the reason is simple. The supermarkets are closer to the consumers' hearts than the shopping malls. They are in your neighborhood, they are in your face, they are smaller. They tend to sell certain products at cheaper prices than you will find them in shopping malls. And even in many supermarkets, you'll find a wider assortment than you would find in the shopping malls where you have more limited assortments at higher prices, and not everything you need is always there compared to a supermarket setting. There's also the social bond that people tend to have with their favorite supermarket, favorite seller. And the supermarkets in Nigeria are getting service right when compared to the shopping malls. We are seeing that they're able to position certain people to attend to people as they buy. Don't forget that Nigeria is a do-it-for-me market, and this is the reason why people are choosing to patronize supermarkets a lot more than they would do. So perhaps there's something that shopping malls should learn. Innovation is also stronger in the supermarkets. So many supermarkets are trying quick commerce. Some have even moved into food businesses. You'll be surprised to find that out, that they are doing food restaurant-based businesses alongside selling in their brick and mortar outlets. And some are experimenting with e-commerce as well. So these are some of the trends we see that are making supermarkets outperform malls, and we envisage that that trend is likely to continue.
Right, and definitely it's a tough time for businesses and consumers, generally. And you did talk about, customer loyalty earlier, but talk to me about how businesses can grow customer loyalty, in Nigeria's current economic state.
Yeah, every business wants to keep their customer for as long as possible, but the reality is that the customers are looking at moving as fast as they can if they get something better. So in order to keep the customer in this difficult, in this turbulent economic times, I think there are three things that would be useful to consider. The first one is consistency. Every business needs to be consistent in offering high-valued experiences, good offers to the consumer. It's very easy to say we offer something, but it's very hard to be consistent at offering that at scale. And that's one of the biggest challenges Nigerian businesses have, consistently offering value at scale. But if you can get consistency right, I guarantee that there'll be loyalty. The second one is transparency. So consumers want us as businesses to be more attentive to their needs, attentive in the way we offer experiences, attentive in the way we run our businesses, attentive to their lives. And the higher the attention to the consumer, the more likely that they want to spend on the brand. And this is what our data we've collected shows. But I think that the third and most important strategy to guide maintaining customer loyalty in this difficult time is flexibility. Flexibility in the sense that we may have started with a business model that worked for us. But what we are realizing now is that last year's future, or the past future, the past, what you might call strategy for success may not guarantee future success. And so this is a time for businesses to be very flexible about how they choose to engage the consumer and to try things that are new and that are different in order to secure this loyalty that we all need. So those are my thoughts in that direction.
All right, Prof, before I let you go, definitely another big issue has been with us for the longest time, profiteering. We see some sellers always trying to take advantage, of the consumer, in Nigeria. Is there a chance we can ever check this issue?
Yes, I believe there's a chance to check it. Profiteering, the problem with profit maximization and profiteering is that it makes the business fixate on success at all costs, thinking that the means will always justify the means. And it makes the business to be too short-term minded when we should be thinking longer term. But there are cases of businesses that are choosing to be more long-term minded and are trying to look for mutual benefit. So it's not about not being profitable, but it's about creating profit, generating profit in a way that benefits all stakeholders, including the consumer, rather than profit maximization. And I think the way to make this institutionalized is just to democratize and show what the data is saying. Businesses that are living just for profit at all costs don't end up surviving in the long term. Whereas those that think about shared value are the ones that end up staying. I think the more we can share this information out there to businesses and guide them, the greater the chances of success.
All right, I guess let's hope the consumer in Nigeria survives 2024. Definitely. Thank you so much. It was great having your perspective, Professor Uche Nauzo, Professor of Marketing, Academic Director of the Africa Retail Academy, Lagos Business School. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here. Have a wonderful day.
You too. All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we head straight to the commodities market. That's in a moment. Do stay with us. This is Business Morning.